So what if I told you that the gardening rule you've been following religiously might actually be holding your garden back? After decades of rotating crops like clockwork, moving my tomatoes here and my beans there, I stumbled upon a discovery that completely transformed my approach to soil health. The results were so dramatic that I haven't rotated a single crop in 3 years, yet my soil has never been more fertile or productive. Traditional crop rotation has been the holy grail of gardening wisdom for generations. The theory sounds logical enough: move crops around to break pest cycles, prevent soil depletion, and maintain balance. But here's what nobody talks about. In small home gardens, this system often creates more problems than it solves. When you're working with limited space, raised beds, or permanent structures, true rotation becomes nearly impossible. Pests simply migrate from bed to bed, and nutrients don't magically restore themselves just because you planted something different. The breakthrough came when I realized that soil health isn't about what you don't plant. It's about what you actively feed the living ecosystem beneath your feet. Instead of focusing on moving crops around, I started building a thriving underground community of microbes, fungi, and beneficial organisms that could handle any challenge I threw at them. The first game changer in my soil revolution was ditching traditional mulching for a living system. Instead of just laying down straw or leaves and calling it done, I began integrating cover crops directly into my growing beds. Clover became my secret weapon. I overseed it beneath my brassicas, around my corn, and even in the pathways between raised beds. The magic happens through nitrogen fixation. Plants like cowpea, fenugreek, and white clover form partnerships with beneficial bacteria in their root nodules, literally pulling nitrogen from the air and depositing it into the soil. When I plant a strip of cowpea alongside my corn, I'm essentially creating a living fertilizer factory that operates 24/7 throughout the growing season. The corn gets steady nutrition without depleting the soil, making rotation completely unnecessary. This approach works even in tight spaces. In a 4-foot wide raised bed, I can dedicate just 6 inches to a nitrogen-fixing strip while still maintaining full production in the remaining area. The clover suppresses weeds, prevents soil compaction, and continues working long after my main crops are harvested. The second pillar of my rotation-free system involves brewing biological warfare against soil problems. I'm talking about compost tea, not the weak stuff you might have tried before, but a concentrated microbial powerhouse that transforms soil health in days, not seasons. So, my formula is pretty precise. It's 1 shovel of finished compost, 1 tablespoon of molasses, and about 5 gallons of water. The molasses, it really feeds the microbes during the 24-hour brewing process, and that leads to just explosive population growth. After bubbling for a full day using an aquarium pump, this tea ends up containing billions of beneficial bacteria and fungi, all ready to colonize your soil. I apply this microbial army directly to the root zone of my plants every 2 weeks during the growing season. The beneficial organisms, they quickly establish dominance, crowding out pathogenic fungi and bacteria before those guys can even get a foothold. Honestly, this kind of biological competition is just way more effective than rotating crops to avoid disease. Instead of running from problems, I'm overwhelming them with solutions. The results, well, they really do speak for themselves. Tomatoes that once succumbed to blight after 2 seasons in the same spot now thrive for 5 consecutive years with 0 disease pressure. The key, honestly, is maintaining microbial diversity and abundance that can handle any pathogen challenge. Strategic plant partnerships or companion planting really take things a step further by creating plant communities that, support each other's success. Instead of isolating crops in separate areas, I like to design these integrated systems where each plant actually contributes to the whole. My tomato beds, honestly, showcase this approach perfectly. Rather than moving tomatoes to different spots every season, I surround them with basil. Basil confuses pest insects and, believe it or not, improves tomato flavor through its root secretions. Garlic, which I plant around the perimeter, releases sulfur compounds that deter nematodes and other soil-dwelling pests. And nasturtiums act as trap crops, luring aphids away from the tomatoes while also adding their own nitrogen-fixing capabilities. This, in turn, creates a self-regulating ecosystem where, well, problems kind of solve themselves. The diverse root systems reach into different soil layers and nutrients, which prevents the depletion that crop rotation is supposed to address. At the same time, the varied plant chemistry creates an environment that's hostile to pests and diseases while actually promoting populations of beneficial insects. The final component that made rotation obsolete in my garden is trench composting, feeding the soil exactly where my crops grow rather than waiting for rest periods. This technique rebuilds soil fertility continuously rather than hoping it will recover during fallow periods. The process couldn't be simpler. I dig a trench roughly 1 foot deep directly in my planting rows, add kitchen scraps and garden waste using a 1:2 ratio of organic matter to soil, then cover everything back up. The decomposition happens right where my plants need nutrition most, creating rich, biologically active soil that improves with each growing season. This underground composting creates sustained-release fertilizer that feeds plants for months while building soil structure through increased organic matter. Earthworms migrate to these nutrient-rich zones, creating additional aeration and nutrient cycling. The result is soil that gets stronger and more productive each year, rather than requiring rest periods to recover. The compound effect. When you combine living mulch, microbial enhancement, companion planting, and in-place composting, something, well, remarkable happens. Your soil doesn't just maintain its health, it actively improves season after season. Those beds that once needed rotation breaks, they become permanently productive powerhouses. It's quite an amazing transformation. Now let's talk about a new mindset. The traditional rotation mindset treats soil as something that gets depleted and needs time to recover. But my approach? It treats soil as a living system that thrives on diversity, consistent feeding, and biological activity. By maintaining year-round soil coverage, continuous organic matter input, and diverse microbial populations, the need for crop rotation simply disappears. It's a whole new way of thinking about soil health. This system works especially well in raised beds and small spaces where rotation is, pretty impractical anyway. Instead of struggling with complicated rotation schedules or feeling guilty about planting tomatoes in the same spot again, you can focus on building truly resilient soil that handles any challenge. The shift in perspective really changes everything. Rather than moving problems around your garden, you're solving them permanently through biological abundance and diversity. Your soil becomes a living foundation that supports whatever you choose to grow, wherever you choose to grow it. Ready to revolutionize your garden's productivity? Start with just one technique this week. Brew your first batch of compost tea, overseed some clover in an empty bed corner, or dig your first compost trench. Just watch how quickly your soil responds to this direct feeding approach, rather than the indirect hoping that rotation provides. The results will convince you faster than any theory, honestly. When you see your plants thriving in soil that gets better every season rather than depleting over time, you'll wonder why anyone still moves crops around, hoping for the best. Don't forget to subscribe to Crop Corner for more soil-building strategies that actually work in real gardens, and share this breakthrough with any gardener ready to move beyond outdated rotation rules. Your soil is ready to become a permanent foundation for abundance, not something that needs constant management and rest.